Good afternoon, everybody. What's happening? Hope everyone is well. I wanted to make a quick video today showing you how to replace the complete tie rods on your car. Now I'll be replacing the entire tie rod, which is the inner and the outer. It came in one piece, and I'm installing Lumforder units on this car. Here we are underneath the driver's side of the car. This is our tie rod assembly. We have the outer part here and the inner part right here. As you can see, I've already cut away the rubber boot that typically protects this as it attaches to the steering rack. Now I'm going to start by removing the inner part of the tie rod from the steering rack, and that requires a 32mm wrench. Fortunately, I already have a fan clutch wrench, which happens to be a 32. That was really easy, only took a few minutes. Next, we're going to remove the nut right here and use our ball joint tool to pop the end of this tie rod from our hub. As you can see here, I didn't take the nut all the way off. However, I backed it off just enough so that it sits flush with the top of the stud. That's going to come in handy when we put our tool over it, because we're going to need that nut on the top to help us pop off the tie rod end without damaging the stud. By leaving the nut on, it gives us more surface area for this tool to work and do its job. And I'll put a link in the description below where you can purchase this tool. Now that this is loose in the hub, all we have to do is remove this nut, and sometimes you get lucky and you can just zap this off with the impact gun, put the 18mm back on. But if that doesn't work, or you don't have an impact gun, we're going to have to take our Allen socket here, put it in the top of the stud, and use an 18mm wrench to continue removing the nut. As you can see, we have way more threads on the new one compared to the old one. So we're just going to make some slight adjustments here. Now that we've counted the threads and set the gap on this side, as you can see there's a bit of a gap here next to the spacer, we're just going to thread that back in. Obviously an alignment is necessary after this job, but if we at least match up some of these threads here, it may be sort of drivable down to the alignment shop. Now I fit a 15/16 on this large nut here, and here is a 16, and we'll just tighten this. Now we can put the new tie rod back into the car. But before we forget, we have a new boot here and clamps for our steering rack. And we can't put this on once that tie rod end is already on. So let's slip this on over the tie rod and then install the tie rod back into the steering rack. And as always, I'll put a link for this part in the description below. And we'll thread this end back into the steering rack. So let's install the tie rod back into the hub first. We'll place our washer down. And install the nut. We'll slide the dust boot back and out of the way. And we'll install the inner tie rod back into the steering rack. I like to start this by hand first so we know that the threads are going in nicely and we're not cross-threading anything. And we'll finish this up with the 32. Let's slide the dust boot back into place with the clamps. And we can also put some grease on the teeth here of the steering rack if it's dry. And now we can torque down the nut on the end of the tie rod. And again, we'll use a 5mm Allen socket and an 18mm wrench to hold the stud while we tighten the nut. Actually, it's a 19mm. It looks like Lemforder is now using 19mm nuts on the new parts. And that's pretty much all there is to it. As always guys, thanks for watching. I hope this video helped you out today. If it did, please smash that like button and subscribe.